These people all got rich through property, and in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how they did it, how I built my portfolio, and how you can too. Now, the first thing is they are all very resourceful. Now, one of the most common objections that I hear in property is, Justin, I just don't have enough money. And whilst having money makes investing in property, of course, incredibly easier, you don't have to if you know how to get resourceful. You see, those successful property people that I just shared with you did not come from money. They did not inherit copious amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of pounds. They didn't get that. They learned and understood how to earn money fast, how to build up capital, how to raise capital, and leverage the bank's money. You see, buying properties for free doesn't happen, even though certain people in this industry might promote that. But by becoming a resourceful and knowledgeable investor that takes massive action is absolutely possible. And it's absolutely why you see some people get massive results in short spaces of time. So getting resourceful is actually found in most parts of property. This might be when trying to find out information that you don't currently know about property, might be trying to find out and understand refurb costs by asking builders, asking surveyors, asking local investors, or it might be trying to secure the best possible property deals by building relationships up with estate agents or trying to find off-market properties. It's such a big part of being a property investor. You see, when we're starting out, if we imagine this graph is about our time, of course, at the beginning, we need to be really resourceful. Lots of time involved, lots of taking action. And then at the point at which we buy the property, well, all of a sudden, this drops down and perhaps stays fairly consistent near the bottom. This bit here is where we're renting it out, we're just maintaining it, and that property's ticking over. Versus if we talk about the money coming in, well, at the beginning, we don't have much money coming in or any money coming in. And then when we buy the property, well, it goes up and then it continues up and up and up. And that is because at the beginning, there's no money coming in, but then we buy it, we rent it out, perhaps the rents are going up. And of course, over time, the property goes up in capital appreciation. But the nice thing about property is that we have to be super resourceful at the beginning. But once we've bought that property once, put all that effort in once, we now have an asset that pays us for life. Number two has got to be work ethic. You see, the majority of successful investors that you see have been playing the same game over and over again. They've been working relentlessly with a high work ethic and over an extended period of time. It's not just 1 month or 6 months of work, it's years of chasing their goals, copy and pasting the same business model over and over again because they know it works. It might be boring, but it works. And it's the work ethic that helps achieve that long goal. Number three has got to be playing the long game. You know, I'm a big fan of the long game, this expression that I've used over the years, but it's consistency over long periods of time that then creates a much bigger outcome. You see, Warren Buffett, one of the greatest known investors of all time, started working in his teenage years, yet he didn't see massive growth or reach high levels of net worth status until he was in his 50s. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to take all of us 30 or 40 years to then go and hit our goals and build wealth, but it will certainly take us a matter of years or potentially up to a decade to be able to see big results. And every time I make short-term decisions, well, it comes with short-lived outcomes. Yet every time I invest with a long game mindset, well, it's surprising how much my decisions are better. And I actually end up achieving those long-term goals much quicker because I wasn't thinking about the short term. The fourth one is ownership. You see, sourcing and rent to rent are fantastic capital generating strategies, but they will not generate long-term wealth. That might be a bit of a controversial statement. Some people will come after me for that one, but it's the investing into assets that takes people from earning good amounts of money to becoming worth a lot of money. You see, the successful investors that I mentioned, well, they're going to aim for ownership of property. They did aim for the ownership of the property, as they know you can benefit from the cash flow and then the capital appreciation as well. And then the fifth one here is personal brand. What do most of those people that I mentioned and myself have in common? Well, we all have a personal brand. We create content, we share information, and this allows us to share really valuable lessons and mistakes with the people that follow us, but B, it helps us to build authority within our space, within our industry, which is property, meaning that we can leverage our authority and our brand to work with other investors, collaborate. And this could be raising finance, or it could be attracting customers to work with a sourcing business like my own one. So those are the 5 reasons that they have managed to get rich from property. Some of those people would have started with a bit of capital. Some of them would have started with absolutely nothing, but they managed to make it work. They managed to get resourceful. They put in a high level of work ethic. They played the long game. They thought about ownership, and they built out their personal brand. So now moving on from them, thinking about me, how did I then grow a portfolio when I started with under £20,000 in savings? Well, first of all, we mentioned being resourceful. You see, I bought my first buy-to-let property in 2019, and that was most of my savings gone. And yet I had 2 main goals to achieve. I wanted to build my portfolio, and I wanted to leave my full-time job. So I had to think outside of the box here and become resourceful. You see, properties require capital, and well, I needed capital. And there are only 2 main ways that we can then go out and do this. Number 1 is to raise capital from private investors. Number 2 is to generate large amounts of cash flow in order to build up my cash pot quicker. So the first thing that I did was to actually raise capital from an investor and then strategically invest that into my first ever BRR project. This allowed me to move forward with purchasing that second buy-to-let property. It was run down, needed a full refurbishment, and at the end, I refinanced out the capital and repaid my private investor along with his interest payments. So I was resourceful. I had the need for capital to grow my portfolio, so I found a solution and took calculated risks to make that happen. The second thing that I did was launch Property X in August of 2021. Can you believe my business will be 3 years old this year? I certainly can't. But there's a lot of statistics online, but they say at least 10% of startups fail in the first year and 20% fail in the second year. So we're doing well so far. But I started Property X in 2021 to assist other new investors to find good property investments and to build their portfolios. We do this by providing market-leading sourcing services and education for beginners. The revenue of my business grew very quickly. In fact, I can still remember putting in the first £100 into that bank account so that I could get that business started. And ever since then, I've bootstrapped it to a significant amount more money. And I now use some of my annual profits each year to go out and invest and buy properties. Not only that, but if I now work with a private investor on a project and my projected numbers come in slightly short, let's say maybe I leave £10,000 in a deal, well, I have a cash flowing business ticking along, which helps me cover that downfall and always pay back any investors on time and with their interest rate. The second thing is work ethic. And if it's not clear from some of my vlogs, some of my videos, I work consistently 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And every week I'm working quite long hours. I start 7 or 8 each day and I will go to 7 p.m. most days. So my work ethic, I believe, is at a high level, and I continuously put this in time and time again because I know if I build now, then I'm going to reap the rewards later. And in fact, that brings me on to the next one, the long game. I am not the best investor in the world, nor am I the quickest growing investor of all time. However, if you look back over the last 4, almost 5 years of investing, you will see that when averaged out, I have bought 3 properties per year when averaged out over each year. Some I have kept as buy-to-lets, well, most of them I have. Some I have sold for a profit and flipped them on. But it's the consistency and thinking long-term that have allowed me to continuously grow my net worth year over year. Next up is ownership. And hopefully this one's clear. Although I have 2 arms to my business and investing, I have my investing business in which I buy properties and I hold them, and then I have my sourcing business completely separate, run as a trading business. Although I have those 2, hopefully it's clear from my messaging that my goal is to always generate money and invest that into property. And the key is on ownership. I want to own the properties rather than, for example, doing the rent-to-rent strategy. Not that I have anything against it, but I want the ownership. I want the capital appreciation. I want the control over those individual properties. So I have managed to grow my portfolio by raising money, by generating cash and building capital through my business, and then obviously transfer that over to my investment business. So this is known as taking fast pounds and trading them for slow pounds. You see, the money that I earn quickly through business, I then try and take it over and invest it into assets, which although don't pay a lot and don't pay it as regularly, they just tick along in the background, earning slow money without as much effort from me. And last but not least is personal brand, okay? You can go back over the last 4 years and watch hundreds of videos made by me on YouTube and on Instagram. This started off because I found it difficult to learn information about property investing when I was starting out back in 2018, 2019 when I was trying to learn. It was all books and stuffy old forums. Sorry to the people that run the stuffy old forums, but I'm not really that sorry. So I started creating videos to document my journey and to teach other investors, my lessons, my mistakes, etc. In fact, that's probably why you are here watching me now. This personal brand is exactly what allowed me to raise finance and to start and grow a business quickly. Personal brand is now an essential part of being a business owner or investor, in my personal opinion. The advantages of doing it now far outweigh the disadvantages to doing it. So what should you focus on in 2024 to quickly grow your own property portfolio? Well, the first thing you need to do is focus on your own route. Now, your route might be capital or no capital. If you have capital, then you just need to make a decision on which strategy are you going down. Is it flips? Is it BRR? Is it turnkeys? Okay, whatever the model is, you need to decide, which one are you going to lean into and become hyper focused on that. If your route is, actually, I don't have any capital, but I want to get into property, well, now you need to think about this, but at a later date. You, in fact, need to think more about, do I think about raising finance or do I think about generating cash flow? Okay, so when you've got no capital, you do need to think about strategies, but actually your biggest concern is actually getting money. If you've got no money, you need to get money. Now, you have to do this in two ways. So the raising finance route, well, you're not going to be able to generate much cash flow for yourself. So you need to think about how you're going to live. Are you going to work alongside doing that? Because what you're doing is raising money to buy assets, to buy slow cash flow. Whereas if you go down the route of generating cash flow, this is going to be typically through either sourcing or through doing rent to rent. If you go within the property space, it could also be actually creating a business outside of property which generates cash flow. But by doing that, you're getting quicker pounds in, you can build up capital and then go down the route of course, investing into assets, creating those slow pounds. So I'll put that down as number one, choose your route. You're gonna have to make that decision. But number two is then gonna be pay to get ahead, okay? So pay to get ahead. I'll just put pay. I've just come back from spending the day with my mentor in order to learn how to better systemize my business and therefore grow a team. I'll happily pay for his time because I understand in life you can either try and learn something over a long extended period of time and potentially cost myself a lot of time, money and mistakes in order to learn that thing, or I can actually pay to learn the thing quicker and get results quicker. For the same reason, I might go out and pay a driving instructor to teach me how to drive prior to taking a driving test, because I don't want to turn up to the driving test without any previous experience, without any idea of how to drive. It's the same route that I might hire a mentor in business. But obviously, if you do go down this route, you just have to be careful that the person you choose does what they say they're going to do. So make sure you do lots of due diligence and check that they are doing the actual thing. The next thing would be to document your journey. Now, the outcome of this will be to create a personal brand. You see, at the start, you are not going to be an expert, so don't claim to be one. That's a big mistake. But simply document the lessons that you learn, the mistakes you make, and the success you are having. Share it in a way that the version of you 6 months ago can actually digest, find it valuable, and learn from your content. Number 4 is do not wait for perfect conditions. I'll just put do not wait, which for most of life is actually a very good thing to learn. But my messaging with this is very simple. I like the phrase movement, not perfection. What do I mean by this? Well, you will never have the perfect conditions to buy a property. You think you will, but you won't. Buying properties requires you to make large decisions that involve large sums of money, and you do it without having all of the information. For example, when you go to buy your first buy to let, you learn how to analyze the deal, you learn how to view the property and you go and view it, you make notes on it, you come home, you do your due diligence online, etc., etc. But when it comes to submitting the offer, well, you're only going to have 80% of the information. You think you need 100, but you're only going to have 80. The other 20% of information you will find out during the conveyancing phase. You'll find out by getting a survey, and you'll find out by reviewing the paperwork that is sent to your solicitor from the current owners of the property. So you need to react. Do not wait for perfect conditions. You need to react with as much information as you can get, take the step forward, and then of course do your further de-risking of that property during the purchase phase. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Otherwise you will never get started. That's why I meet and I talk to people who say, I've been thinking about property for 3 or 4 years. It's either the fact they haven't put the time aside or dedicated enough, or it's the fact that they feel that they need to wait for that perfect property, which will never ever happen, sadly. And the last one, last but not least, is to take massive action. We looked at those other investors that have got rich through property. We know they had obviously a really good work ethic. They'd been really resourceful. And of course, they'd focused on building up those assets, that ownership. Well, now we need to do as investors, as new investors, is take massive action. So if you're sitting here, you're right at the start of 2024, you want a good result by the end of the year, well, you're going to need to do a lot of that. In fact, you're going to need to choose the route that you go down. You're going to have to potentially pay to get ahead if you want to do this year. You're going to have to document. You don't have to do that bit. I would really recommend you do that bit if you want to see more success in future. You do not want to wait for the perfect moment, and you need to take lots of action once you know what you're doing. So that is it. If I wanted to get started with a property portfolio in 2024, I wouldn't just be thinking about the property specifics. I'd also be thinking about this stuff. What can I put in action to have a bigger year, a bigger outcome? How can I get rich through property? Think about the mindset stuff. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week.